Hey there and welcome back to another Miraculous Ladybug video. And today we're going to be diving into one of the most popular fan theories in the Miraculous Ladybug fandom. The theory that either Adrien, Felix, or both are sentimonsters created at some point in the past by a user of the Peacock Miraculous. Now historically, I've thought that this whole theory was kinda silly and would never make it into the show itself. I mean, once upon a time, the primary evidence was that Emily had used the Peacock Miraculous and that Adrien was pretty subservient to his dad. I mean, that was pretty much it. But Season 4's really amped up the Senti Children references to the point that there actually seems to be a lot of supporting evidence coming out in favour of this theory actually being legit. And honestly, it's kind of come out of the blue, and it's making me wonder whether they've actually decided to change things on the fly as a response to all the fan theories. And I'm not saying reactionary writing is the right thing to do for things like this, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it happening. Anyway, today I want to go through all the evidence that's been laid out for Adrien and Felix to both be sentimonsters and come to some sort of consensus as to what I think. So, with all that being said, let's jump into the video. So, a lot of these theories and speculation really started when it was revealed what the power of the Peacock Miraculous was. We saw that it could create living creatures and thought, what else could it make? And then we saw Natalie create her own living, breathing copy of Ladybug who was able to gain her own independence before her death. And then we saw Natalie getting sick after using the Miraculous, and Emily's corpse on ice in the basement. And I think these factors combining is really what brought the theory to life. It made people think, hey, wait a minute, Adrien's pretty submissive to his dad, almost like he's being controlled. And we know for a fact that Emily used the Miraculous, but for what? Remember, we know that Gabe only started doing supervillain shenanigans because he was trying to bring his wife back. So therefore, is it so unreasonable to assume that they might have used the Miraculous for this thing instead? Now, my perspective on all this is that pre-season 4, I didn't buy it. It just felt like a weird plot twist based on some pretty flimsy evidence. A theory that could be true, but doesn't seem to be. And would honestly feel like a twist for the sake of a twist at that point in time. But then we got to Season 4, and suddenly the theory started to get a lot more real. Now, one of the bigger plot points of Season 3 was Felix stealing back one of his family's twin rings that were currently owned by Gabriel and Emily. Now, at the time, it just felt like he was getting one over on Gabe and wanted to get one of his family heirlooms back. I did theorize at the time that he could be a sentimonster, but even though I theorized it, I wasn't really fully convinced because we really didn't have all that much evidence to prove it, other than Adrien and himself looking too alike to actually be cousins. Then, in a few episodes of Season 4 since Gabe put on his wife's ring after Felix stole his, there's been numerous instances of Gabriel giving Adrien an order and rubbing the ring with his fingers, with Adrien initially hesitating before obeying, as if he's been controlled. And then you combine this with Adrien's whole story in Wishmaker, where it's revealed that his childhood dream was to be whatever his parents wanted him to be. Yikes. So you mean that's it? No dreams of your own? Now this is where I have to head into tinfoil hat territory. Because perhaps the reason for his lack of childhood dreams outside of being whatever his parents wanted is because he was a sentimonster. He wasn't born, he was created. Which means that when he was just a child, he hadn't developed his own sense of self and was reliant on being told what to do. Remember how quickly Ladybug's Sentimonster gained a will of its own and did what Marinette would do? That's potentially because she was a copy of Marinette, who already had a defined personality, hopes and dreams. And thus, it might have been easier for her to break free of the control. In contrast, Adrien wouldn't have this ability, at least not right away. He has to develop his own personality, but unlike other kids who absorb everything like a sponge and are able to form their own little thoughts and feelings, he couldn't. Not at first. They had to set him up with a template of what they wanted. But a baby can't really comprehend that, so it probably took years until he was capable of developing his own personality and didn't need to be actively controlled. Hence, why he has no childhood dreams and seemingly has the perfect personality, at least when he's in Adrien mode. Plus, if Emily did create him, they could just control his every whim. He never went to a school with other kids. The only other people he hung out with were carefully chosen, like Felix and Chloe. And he lived a really sheltered life, being dependent on his mother. And then when Emily, who if the theory is correct wore the ring that could control him, died, he splits off from the controlled template. He tries to go to school, he becomes Cat Noir, and his personality when in that form changes drastically. He makes new friends and has new experiences and even defies his dad, like a lot. Until his dad puts on the ring that controls him because he wants to be reminded of his wife after Felix pinches his version, and then can't resist using it from time to time. So really, that's probably the major piece of evidence for Adrien being a sentimonster. And I'm not sure I like it. For me, it's just a little too strange, and the only way for it to be properly proven beyond a shadow of a doubt would be for Adrien to be controlled whilst realizing what's happening, or having his amok be removed, so killing him. And the first would probably break his brain. Can you imagine that happening to you? And the second would, well, that would kill him. So it's not a very happy ending for Adriens. So honestly, despite the evidence seemingly starting to build for some big sentimonster reveal, I don't think I want one. Don't get me wrong, it would be a cool twist. But I don't actually trust the writing to show the consequences for Adrien beyond him being sad for 5 minutes of the episode and Marinette healing him with the power of love and friendship. It just wouldn't be very satisfying. But that being said, I kind of think the writers have fallen in love with the idea a little bit and are potentially leaning towards it. I mean, the hints have gotten a lot more overt in season 4, so I wouldn't put it past them to have some crazy surprise twist. Not to mention, the brand ambassadors over this season have kind of gone into overdrive, clarifying that a sentimonster is the same as a real person. They were just created differently. But still, I don't think they really accounted for the fact that it's kind of creepy and unnerving and will probably break the fandom's brains a little bit. And then, this brings us to Felix. Now, Felix is a character who, for the most part, went a little bit under the radar. He appeared in his debut episode, seemed like a bit of a turd, and then disappeared again after nicking Gabe's ring. So whilst Adrien was subjected to all these different theories about his origin, Felix, for the most part, avoided it. Yes, there was some speculation as to why he wanted the ring in the first place beyond sentimental value, but not nearly to the level of the Adrien sentimonster theories. But then the episode Gabriel Agreste comes along, which shows Gabriel desperately trying to get his ring back, going all the way to threatening Felix, telling him he could make him disappear with the snap of his fingers. And when you put it like that, yeah, it does seem like Felix might be a sentimonster. And then add on the fact that his dad supposedly died around the same time that Emily disappeared, and it all does get a little bit suspicious, especially when you factor in that Felix also apparently underwent a personality shift after his dad's death and became more mischievous. Bit suspicious if you ask me. And I do think that it would be really interesting for there to be ulterior motives for wanting the rings. But honestly, I think that whole scene was a bit of a red herring, just there to mess with your head. Honestly, I think that Gabe was just threatening him to get a reaction so that he could akumatize him and get the ring back. Nothing more, nothing less. No sentimonster. Whilst Gabe is a smooth brain from time to time, he isn't completely stupid. He wouldn't just kill Felix. He would ruin his own life in a heartbeat. And honestly, from a writing point of view, I think it's for the best if Felix isn't one. Because why should I care if he is? He's been in like 2 episodes thus far. Nobody would care. Not in the same way as Adrien, at least. Then again, this whole sentimonster business did ramp up since he returned, despite Thomas initially stating that Felix would never appear in the show. So who knows, but based on this evidence, I think that Adrien is most definitely a sentimonster. I'm not saying I like it, or that I want it, but I think it's highly likely the writers have fallen in love with the concept and will use it soon. If they make Felix a sentimonster, I guess the evidence is there. But I dislike it even more, as it doesn't really have much emotional gravitas to it for anyone to even care. And that to me makes it a dumb idea that should not be done. That being said though, those are just my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. Do you think Adrien's a sentimonster? Yes? No? Maybe Felix? Maybe nobody? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, so make sure to leave a comment and let me know.